I had to survive 300 days in ultra modded Minecraft. My goals are to craft full Dragon Scale Armour, fully upgrade a beacon with 3 beacon lenses, and fight the strongest boss in the game, the Hovering Inferno. Make sure you watch till the end to see the epic boss fight. Day 201, I grabbed a bunch of gas tiers, then went to collect some sand for glass and turned my blaze rod into blaze powder. I needed to kill the ender dragon a bunch of times for dragon scale, so I collected a bunch of ender pearls and made summoning crystals. As I was summoning the dragon, this crystal almost killed me. I then drank my potions of slow falling and began taking out all of the crystals once again. I was able to do a ton of damage to the ender dragon in the air and while it was perched. And on day 202, I was able to take out the ender dragon in the air. My reward was about 5 dragon scales. Before I took on another dragon, I flew over to the ship right next to the End Island. This ship had some of the strongest mobs I ever faced, especially in the first 100 days. I got a rare advancement for picking up Protection 5 boots and went to the bottom floor of the ship. I took out these crazy strong husks, so hopefully their loot was actually pretty good. In the chest there were a ton of gold, diamonds, potions, and a bunch of food. After collecting everything, I went back to the island to summon another dragon. I took out the summoning crystals one more time, and once it perched, this dragon launched me all the way into the air. As I was falling down, I was able to take this dragon out with my bow and summon another dragon. This is where things started to go wrong. I was getting a little too cocky. This dragon was super low, so when I went to perch down, it hit me and blew up everything. Luckily, I had my totems and golden apples, so I stayed up in the air taking this dragon out. Even though I almost died, I got what I needed, a ton of dragon scales and a few levels. Well, it turned out to be only 10 dragon scales, but that was enough to make full dragon scale armor. But I needed to make netherite armor first. After making regular netherite gear one more time, I used my dragon scale to make full dragon scale armor. I used almost all of my levels to make sure I got the perfect enchantment on this dragon scale armor. I then disenchanted all of my old armor and put him on an armor stand. After a few days of enchanting all of my gear, I finally had fully enchanted dragon scale armor. The rest of day 205, I went fishing to grab some puffer fish. I wanted to make potions of water breathing. Day 206 to 208, I took my waystone and flew over with my potions of water breathing to grab some tridents. While I was looking for tridents, I found this undead ship where I sprinkled this entire area with their own TNT and blew this place up. I then went underwater and killed a ton of drowns to grab a trident for myself. This looting 3 sword was really useful. Right next to where the trident was, there was an ocean temple, which I then broke into and took the loot. This ocean temple had some terrible loot, just 3 diamonds, so I made my way back home to turn this regular trident into a dragon trident. Day 209 to day 214. For these 5 days, I chopped down all the trees near my base to make a bunch of sticks. After that, I took my potions of fire resistance and went to the nether to collect 15 wither skeleton skulls. This way, I could complete one of my main goals, which was to upgrade a beacon with 3 beacon lenses. Those things give you some crazy OP effects. After the nether trip, I then went back home and brewed a bunch of potions to take on 5 withers at once. Day 215, I found a spot to summon all 5 withers at once. While I was placing all of these heads, I messed up on one of these wither skeletons, and guess what happened? One of the withers blew up and took out 3 of my skeleton heads. I didn't have any time to complain though, so I flew up and tried to focus all of my effort on one wither. I stayed back firing my bow until one of these guys aggroed at me. Thank God for my power 5 dragon bow, I was able to easily take this wither down to its melee stage. Now that the wither was down here with me, it was super easy to take it down with my sharpness 5 sword. I then picked up one of my 4 nether stars and flew over to challenge another wither. Turns out I angered 2 wither at once, so I had to retreat real quick. Luckily, I lowered one of the wither skeleton's health all the way down to melee level. And then with the strength 2 effect, I was easily able to take out the second wither. Then I immediately focused my effort on the next wither. This one was even easier to get down to melee range. Just like the last 2, as soon as it got down to melee range, it was super easy to take out. The final wither was hiding in this cave, so I hit it and it flew all the way back out. I was getting a little too good at killing withers, so this one was just a piece of cake and I picked up the last nether star I needed. Day 216 to day 218, I only had 4 nether stars, so I made 3 beacons and expanded the entire area underneath the beacon. This still wasn't even close to being a fully upgraded beacon, so I gave myself long reach, strength 2, and resistance. I was really close to level 30, so I spent the rest of this day trading a bunch of sticks for emeralds and expanding this entire sugarcane farm. After all of that, I ended up being level 30 and got to enchanting my trident. And then I finally had a fully upgraded dragon trident with Riptide 3, Unbreaking 3, and Mending. I then also unlocked an Ocean Explorer map too. Day 219, to prepare for the Ocean Monument, I spent this entire day fishing for pufferfish so I could make potions of water breathing. Right after that, I took my waystone and flew over to find this Ocean Monument. In my travels, I found an oak mansion. I've never seen this structure before, so I decided to make my way in. Turns out it was just a different version of the Woodland Mansion. There wasn't even any different mobs, but it was super easy to take these guys out with my fully enchanted dragon gear. I got a bunch of totems and emeralds, then broke the window and got the heck out of there. While traveling the next morning, I finally found a real challenge. This was a ship of the Valkyries. Just like the one in the end, this place is stacked to the brim with wither skeletons that ride hoglins and other wither skeletons that ride phantoms. The only reason you'd even set foot in this crazy structure is for the insane loot. Every single one of these chests was filled to the brim with diamonds and a bunch of potions. One of these rooms even had chests filled with ancient debris. I then took out the rest of these mobs and then made my way over to destroy the final spawner. Right as I was flying, there was another structure that I've never seen before, the Colosseum. I wonder what kind of bosses would be right in the center of this place. The spawner right in the middle ended up spawning a giant phantom with a zombie or a skeleton riding on top of it. Oh, it was a zombie. It was a zombie with diamond armor, but the phantom was really easy to take out and I broke the spawner. I then saw another giant structure, the Thornborn Towers. These huge structures are filled to the brim with so much treasure. I have no idea why they all decided to spawn right next to each other. This place is gigantic. Last time I only stayed on the top floor, but each one of these towers had their own individual rooms. Luckily, these guys weren't wither skeletons, but just regular skeletons. They were still really tough to take out. I then grabbed a bunch of loot and then made my way out of here. I still needed to find the Ocean Monument, but I actually ended up finding a Pillager camp first. If you want to see how overpowered Dragon Scale Armor is, these guys ended up not even doing any sort of damage to my armor. Most of the time, I just had my shield up and they ended up shooting themselves. Because they ended up killing themselves, it was really easy to take out the last remaining pillagers. Every single time I try to look for this Ocean Monument, I get distracted, and I got distracted one more time. This was a snow temple. I tried to get inside the snow temple very gracefully, but I ended up activating this entire trap and it blew up. Okay, this time no more distractions. I just beelined it straight to the Ocean Monument. And on day 233, I finally found it. I placed my waystone, drank my potions of water breathing, and jumped straight in. While I was making my way down to the Ocean Monument, I fought a bunch of little guardians. I then got the mining fatigue effect and made my way inside, where I found the first Elder Guardian I needed to take out. One down, two more to go. This one wasn't too far away. Maybe I'm a little too overpowered with my Dragon Scale gear. Okay, one more to go. This guy was even easier. It's like they wanted me to take all of their treasure. And just like that, I defeated the last Elder Guardian. I even got rid of my mining fatigue and took all their sponges. This Ocean Monument was almost 15,000 blocks away. I then made my way back to shore and took the waystone back home. Before this day ended, I wanted to do one more task. It was to completely dry this sponge in the Nether. I have no idea when I'm gonna use it though. Day 234 to 239. The last 100 days, I was looking for a monster called the Piglin Beast in the Nether, but I couldn't find it. But now I have time and all the gear. I spent this entire time just looking for wherever this Piglin Beast could be. I searched the entire Nether, destroying every single one of these piglin outposts and killing every single piglin inside of it. I even took out a bunch of captains and stumbled into a piglin wither battlefield. I really didn't care about their war. I just wanted a ton of gold from those gilded blackstone blocks. And finally, I found a giant piglin camp. The Piglin Beast has to be here. Once again, I started from the outpost and I destroyed every single piglin in this area. Just like that, right in front of me was a Piglin Beast. This guy was absolutely awful. I thought he was gonna be a lot bigger and it was so easy to kill him, and he only dropped 4 gold. I then came back home disappointed. Day 240 to day 243. I wanted to complete some advancements and make the first beacon lens. You put this guy right on top of your beacon and get this crazy effect. For me, it was a full new row of extra hearts. That made me super excited to go and collect more crystals. I needed 2 more crystal types because the other 2 beacon lenses are made with 2 different materials. I then collected a bunch of sugarcane, made a ton of firework, and went to the Nether. Every single one of these beacon lenses takes about 4 netherite ingot. So I spent this entire time in the Nether mining for a bunch of ancient debris. I think I needed around 28 ancient debris to be able to make 8 netherite ingot and fully max out the beacon. It took a little bit, but I collected the last few ancient debris I needed and made my way back home. Day 248, while my ancient debris was smelting, I decided to complete a few more advancements. It was something about these weird little pedestals. Then I was able to finally make the last 2 pieces of the beacon lenses. These 2 beacon lenses ended up giving me Absorption 2 and Regeneration 2. After that, I used some of the loot from the bosses of mass destruction to make this table of elevation. This thing gives the player creative mode flight in a 7x7 area. It's so cool. Right after that, I used the loot to make a staff of suppression. Now this item makes sure no mobs spawn within a 65 block radius. I then moved my waystone. Day 249, I collected some warp blocks to make a decayed workbench. And then a purple altar. This way I could have an enderologist and a netherologist in the village. Day 250 to 252. I had a ton of monastery maps, so I just followed one of these maps to find whatever this monastery thing was. Turns out it was just a giant village. This place was filled with a bunch of librarians with a farm right underneath. Right behind the monastery was a pillager camp. Since my pickaxe was really low, I decided it was time to just level it up here. These guys aren't even strong enough to do any sort of damage to me, not even the vindicators. I basically just spent this entire day bullying a ton of pillagers. I think at one point it was probably 1 versus 100. I even stopped using my shield. I didn't even see any need for it. Just like that, I ended up defeating one more pillager camp. Before I decided to go home, I wanted to fly around to see if I could find any more cool structures. There was this weird area with a bunch of TNT traps, but I just ran through and just blocked with my shield. I was probably supposed to fall for these traps, but I just ran through straight away, breaking down everything. I hope the person who set up this entire area isn't mad. I just ran through this entire trapped area. After running through a bunch more traps, my reward was just a few diamonds and a smite book. Oh, that was a waste of time. Since it was nighttime, I decided to go out exploring a little bit more. Luckily, right next to the mesa was a desert biome, and I found another structure. This was called the Tomb of the Arrogant. I built my way inside to this tomb to see what the treasure was in here. The center of this tomb ended up having 4 skeleton spawners, which I ended up breaking, and 2 levers. I stupidly pressed both. This ended up blowing up the front of the tomb. I ended up picking up the gold blocks and went upstairs to check this chest. I had enough of traveling, so I went right back home. I had one thing I needed to do really bad, and that was to finally fully upgrade my backpack. Took a full dragon's head, but I think the storage is more than like 2 or 3 double chests. Day 256 to day 258. I made a bunch of night vision potions and went scouring around the ocean to look for an amethyst geode. I think it's just this mod pack, but these amethyst geodes are super rare. It took me forever to find one. Because I didn't really want to come back, I ended up taking almost every single block in here except for the budding amethyst blocks. With all of that, it was finally time to go home. I just needed the amethyst crystals. This trip was so I could make this cool necklace of illumination. Hopefully it wasn't just a waste of time. These amethyst crystals take forever to get, but as soon as I put this necklace on, I realized it didn't do anything. I just wasted a bunch of time. Day 260 to 265, I did a bunch of research to figure out what the altar from the last 100 days was made for. If you throw the nether star at this altar, it summons the Hovering Inferno. This was a huge mistake. I thought this was just a regular boss, not one of the strongest bosses I would ever face. Luckily for me, I had potions of fire resistance and a totem, so I could at least not die immediately. The Hovering Inferno's movesets were insane. It was non-stop attacks. I used my bow to keep a distance and finally be able to do some sort of damage to this guy. But there were so many problems, I couldn't even see where this guy was. That's when the Hovering Inferno launched itself at me and exploded. My sword ended up doing no damage because this thing also has shields around it. After a few minutes of fighting, I decided to eat my golden apple and attack the Hovering Inferno in the center. Even with my strength potion, I couldn't even get any sort of good damage on this guy. I should have done way more research. This guy was not only destroying the entire battlefield, but he was almost ruining my armor too. When the Hovering Inferno's health was halved, it even started summoning evoker fangs right underneath me. I then came back to the middle to do more damage to the Inferno with my sword. That's when another new move appeared. Now the Inferno was launching shulker blasts. Luckily for me, this guy ended up being trapped right behind me, so with my bow I was able to do a ton of damage. But I was quickly running out of golden apples, so I had to be really careful every single time I attacked this thing head on. The entire battlefield was being filled with all the Inferno's projectiles. This might be my last stand. But for now, I had to fight. I used all the pillars in this battlefield as cover, and doing that, I was able to lower the Hovering Inferno's health almost down to 0. But that's when it launched itself towards me, summoning evoker fangs. I had to retreat. After flying around for a little bit, I came back to kill the Hovering Inferno. Never mind, apparently the Inferno cannot die. I then tried my hardest to escape this battlefield, but ended up getting pulled back non-stop. I had to fight this guy, or it was my life or his. The Hovering Inferno was recovering all of its health, so I made sure to stay on top of the structure and that's when I made the biggest mistake. I tried to escape once again and I got pulled into a pile of red sand. As I was trying to break more and more the red sand fell onto me. This popped my totem and ended up killing me. On day 265, I was killed by the Hovering Inferno. If you made it this far, make sure you check out the rest of the 100 Days episodes and leave a like and comment. Thank you so much for watching.